Every year, millions of people are scammed online. Not because they're careless, not because they're unintelligent, but because modern scams no longer attack computers first. They attack human psychology, fear, urgency, trust. Sometimes, all it takes is a single moment of panic for someone to lose everything. One victim lost more than $140,000 after receiving what appeared to be legitimate calls from Google and Coinbase. The callers sounded professional. The emails looked authentic. The websites appeared real. And the terrifying part? He already knew scams like this existed. But by the time he realized what was happening, it was already too late. Most people imagine scammers as obvious criminals, sending badly written emails full of spelling mistakes. But modern social engineering looks very different. Today's attackers are students of human behavior. They understand how people react under pressure. They know how fear affects decision-making. And they understand something most people underestimate. Under enough emotional stress, almost anyone can be manipulated. In many cases, victims aren't hacked through advanced code. They're manipulated into opening the door themselves. And that's what makes social engineering so dangerous. Because the target isn't your device, it's your mind. It started with a simple notification. Someone was apparently trying to recover the victim's Gmail account from another state. At first, he did the right thing. He denied the request. A few minutes later, the phone rang. The caller claimed to be from Google. The number looked legitimate. The caller sounded calm, professional, confident, and somehow, they already knew personal details connected to the account. The caller explained that a hacker had supposedly changed security information tied to the Gmail account. But this is where the manipulation became dangerous. The scammers didn't simply ask for a password. They created a scene. While the victim was still on the phone, another login notification appeared. This time, the location looked much closer to home. He hesitated, but the caller sounded so convincing, so certain, that he approved the request. That single decision opened the door. Soon after, another call arrived. This time, Coinbase support. The victim received emails that looked flawless. The website matched Coinbase branding perfectly. Even his actual crypto holdings appeared on the screen. At this point, the scam no longer felt like a scam. It felt like a crisis he needed to solve immediately. And this is exactly how social engineering works. The scammers weren't relying on technical hacking alone. They were constructing psychological trust, step by step. Professional language, accurate information, calm reassurance, convincing explanations. The victim later explained that the scammers seemed to have an answer for every question he asked. Under that kind of emotional pressure, confidence becomes believable. Then came the next trigger: urgency. The attackers claimed that a massive unauthorized transfer was already in progress. That's when fear started taking over. The victim was instructed to move funds into a supposedly secure wallet. At first, he hesitated, but by then, the scammers had already spent nearly an hour building authority and trust. And slowly, he complied. By the time the victim realized something was wrong, Tens of thousands of dollars had already been transferred. Then came the final red flag. The scammers asked for recovery phrases connected to hardware wallets. And in that moment, he finally understood. No legitimate company would ever ask for a recovery phrase. But it was already too late. The money was gone. More than $140,000 disappeared through a carefully orchestrated manipulation campaign. Not because the victim lacked intelligence, but because the attackers understood human behavior. Now you might be wondering, how does a smart person let something like this happen? The frightening reality is that most successful scams follow the same psychological blueprint. First, authority. If a random stranger asks for your password, you ignore them. But if Google security calls from what appears to be an official number, your brain reacts differently. People are naturally conditioned to trust authority. Second, urgency. Scammers create panic because panic reduces critical thinking. They want victims in fight or flight mode, where protecting the account feels more important than carefully analyzing the situation. That's why many victims later say the same thing. I wasn't thinking clearly. Because they weren't. That's exactly what the scammers wanted. Third, familiarity. Spoofed phone numbers, correct account details, professional emails, local area codes. Every small detail makes the lie feel more believable. And eventually, the victim stops questioning the situation entirely. Not because they're stupid, but because the manipulation feels real. And that's the psychological trap. But this wasn't an isolated case. In another online post, a victim described receiving a call from someone claiming to be from Xfinity. The caller explained that the victim's internet discount plan had supposedly expired. At first, nothing seemed unusual. The scammer knew the exact monthly payment. They knew the contract details. They even tried upselling additional services, exactly like a real customer service representative would. And that detail matters, because the most effective scams don't exaggerate reality. They imitate it. Eventually, the victim became suspicious and contacted the real company directly. That's when the truth became clear. The original call was fake. But what disturbed the victim most wasn't the attempted scam itself. It was realizing how much information the scammers already knew. Enough information to sound believable. Enough information to lower suspicion. Enough information to manipulate trust. And that's the dangerous reality of modern social engineering. Sometimes the attack begins long before the phone call ever happens. And these scams are becoming even more sophisticated. Some attackers now target startup founders by impersonating venture capital firms. They create convincing social media profiles, schedule professional video calls, ask intelligent business questions. Sometimes, they spend weeks building credibility before attempting the scam itself. Eventually, victims are instructed to install what appears to be harmless troubleshooting software. But the software is actually malware designed to steal sensitive information and financial access. Again, The attack wasn't purely technical. It was psychological. The scammers created a believable world around the victim, and once trust was established, suspicion disappeared. The uncomfortable truth is that social engineering works because human psychology has vulnerabilities. No matter how intelligent someone is, fear and urgency can distort judgment. The most dangerous scams aren't the obvious ones with broken grammar and suspicious links. They're the ones that feel legitimate, the ones that sound professional, the ones that arrive at the exact wrong moment. Because in the age of digital deception, trust itself may be our biggest vulnerability. In a world built on digital trust, question everything.